Nova Minerals arbeitet auf dem Estelle-Goldprojekt in Alaska und hat dort große Pläne. Erst vor wenigen Tagen hat die Firma rund um den CEO Chris Gerdeisen ein Ressourcen-Update veröffentlicht und das hat für Aufsehen gesorgt. Denn nach Veröffentlichung dieser Ressource musste der Share Price einen deutlichen Abrutsch verzeichnen. Das natürlich zum Unmut vieler Investoren. Was aber genau dahinter steht, was die neue Ressource aussagt und auch was Nova Minerals für Zukunftspläne hat, das habe ich mit dem CEO in diesem Interview besprochen. Bleibt also dran, um mehr zu erfahren und auch zu hören, was Chris, der selber mit seinem eigenen Geld in die Firma investiert ist, aus Sicht eines Investors zur derzeitigen Situation der Firma sagt. Zuerst habe ich Chris gebeten, uns einmal mehr über die Arbeiten der Firma seit unserem letzten Gespräch zu berichten und einmal auf die Highlights der Ressource einzugehen.
We did an additional 30,000 meters of drilling last year, mostly infill. And what we've delivered to the market is a global resource increase from 9.6 to now 9.9 million ounces. So getting closer to that 10 million ounce milestone. And also, most significantly, at the RPM deposit, we have now, before the previous resource was inferred resources, very low confidence resources, whereas now we have a nice chunk, a nice sizable measured and indicated resource. And so those are the highest confidence levels, and we've delivered that. And the wonderful thing about it is that there's 340,000 ounces at 2.3 grams per ton in a nice core zone right at the surface. And that will, we're also finishing up our scoping study now, and that being right on the surface, that will be the center of our starter pit for any future mining operation. And so those ounces, can be considered as good as reserves, as good as reserves. So at today's prices, that's $700 million worth of value that we've achieved for Nova. So that would be the major highlights, and we can dig a little bit deeper into the resources themselves. But the highlights are resource increase to 9.9 million ounces and 340,000 ounces of very high grade right on the surface at RPM.
Nova Minerals hat also nun 9,9 Millionen Unzen Gold im Boden und konnte während der letzten Infill-Drilling-Programme auch die Ressourcenkategorien verbessern. Nimmt man die Unzen aus der Measured und aus der Indicated Kategorie, so kommt man auf einen Wert von 700 Millionen Dollar, die sich im Boden befinden. So viel erstmal zu den Highlights der letzten News. Was es mit den Kategorien auf sich hat und was der Unterschied zwischen Erweiterungs- und Infill-Bohrungen ist, dafür wird es innerhalb der nächsten 2 Wochen nochmal ein separates Erklärvideo auf diesem YouTube-Kanal geben. Eine grobe Übersicht, was auf dem Weg von der ersten Bohrung bis hin zur finalen Produktion des Goldes alles zu tun ist, die findet ihr aber schon online in dem hier verlinkten Video. Nun wollte ich aber zuallererst mit Chris über die offensichtliche Situation sprechen und habe ihn direkt auf den Share Price angesprochen. Denn der Share Price der Firma, der ist in den letzten 12 Monaten zurückgekommen. Damit steht Nova nicht alleine da, sondern der gesamte Juniormarkt, der tut sich derzeit wirklich schwer. Viele Firmen verlieren an Wert, vor allem weil derzeit auch das Risikokapital in dem Sektor fehlt. Firmen, die fundamental nun deutlich stärker dastehen als noch zuvor, sind nun aber so günstig wie nie. Doch der große Stoß bei Nova folgte vor wenigen Tagen, dann nach Veröffentlichung des Updates, und die Firma rutschte zwischendurch dann unter 30 australische Cent. Inzwischen steht die Firma wieder bei knapp 37 Cent, was aber dennoch vom Hoch der Firma viel zu weit entfernt ist. Hierzu wollte ich von Chris wissen, was diesen Einbruch des Preises bewirkt hat und was er und die Firma dazu denken.
Certainly, yes, been a very challenging market, broad spectrum. So we've dug into this a bit. It's very extreme what happened this week. Very extreme. Considering what I've just told you, global resource increase, $700 million worth of measured and indicated resources on the surface that we've delivered. And we've dug into this, and what we've seen is, for whatever reason, there's a small fund that one of our investors that is more of a generalist fund. I don't know, they don't seem to be very sophisticated in the resource space. And that fund, for whatever reason, sold. They sold on the news. Perhaps it was, buy the anticipation, sell the news type situation. I don't know what they were thinking. But on the back of that, we just have pages and pages of retail sellers who became skittish. There's we have a lot of retail investors and we really appreciate our retail investors that have been with us through the years. But on the back of that fund selling, the retailers just piled on, and there was massive amount of selling in the resource, smaller trades, just as I said, pages and pages of those type of trades, which is really unfortunate because, it's always the little guy that gets smashed, right? It's always the little guy that gets smashed, and that certainly seems to be the case here. And that's very unfortunate. Now, it looks to be that's started to stabilize now. I think people have recognized that's been oversold, extreme, and it's starting to recover a bit now. And certainly, for all the sellers, there's buyers. There's buyers out there. I've spent the whole week with all of our other larger funds and investors that came in on the last capital raise, and they feel comfortable that the fundamentals have not changed, and they still very much support the project. And this is an opportunity to buy. Certainly, even myself, I've bought, and numerous other directors. We've all looked at this as an opportunity to buy low. That's the mantra, right? Buy low, buy the dip. And so we feel that it's starting to stabilize, it's recovering. And by the time we get to scoping study, and certainly by the time it's released, and some of these, the value that I've just described to you is shown in real numbers, that will have fully recovered. I believe.
Es scheint laut Chris also so, als hätte ein Institutional Investor, welcher nicht auf Mining fokussiert ist, seine Position nach der Veröffentlichung verkauft. Daraus resultiert, haben wohl auch viele Kleinanleger ihre Aktien verkauft und daraus entstand eine Negativspirale, was dann anschließend zu der scharfen Korrektur führte. Chris spricht nochmals an, dass er die Kleinanleger sehr schätzt und sagt, dass er und das Management diesen Dip ebenfalls zum Kaufen genutzt haben, frei nach dem Motto Buy the Dip. Das Management zeigt mit dem Kauf also weiterhin Vertrauen ins Projekt und die Firma. Und Chris sieht das aktuelle Level auch als Chance für Anleger. Er ist der Meinung, dass sich der Preis schon bald recovern wird. Da Chris auch selber mit seinem privaten Geld investiert ist, habe ich ihn einmal gebeten, durch die Brille eines Investors auf die aktuelle Situation zu schauen und uns seine Meinung aus Sicht, nicht des CEOs und des Managements, sondern des Investors zu geben.
Well, you're either a trader or you're an asset holder. Mm-hmm. And so as an investor myself in Nova Minerals, I'm an asset holder, right? And I'm also, my background is I'm also an economic geologist. And so I can look at these type of reports and news releases in a more technical sense. And so I see the fundamentals strong and getting stronger, and it's an opportunity to buy. And which is why I've done so, and as well as my fellow directors who have also bought a substantial shares in this opportunity. So that's how I feel for that. So as a technical, let's take a technical approach of what I see in the resource update, right? In the resource update. So let's dig in a bit. At Korbel, Maine. So perhaps over the years, maybe we've been spoiled a bit. It's a very wonderful project in that sense. You drill, and every year that we've drilled and done resource updates, we've increased the resource by 1 million ounces, 2 million ounces. At some point, you're going to find the boundaries to the deposit. And so we've expanded at Korbel, Maine. We've completed our resource updates, and then the next year we go and drill, and we found those resources. Well, this year we've come to the boundaries of Korbel, Maine. It appears. So and we did a lot of infill drilling there. And so previously, with the wider space drilling, inferred resources, the resource model has an opportunity with no data to go into areas where there's no data. Where now we have data in those areas with the infill drilling. And so we've constrained the deposit. Certainly it pinches out to the north and the south along strike. When I say pinch out, we still see the same structure, and it could possibly open up again to the north of Korbel, Maine at our Isabella prospect. But it's closed off. The Korbel, Maine has a deposit to the north and the south along strike. To the east, there's a very sharp boundary there. So that's a very sharp, hard boundary there. And then to the west, also, we're seeing the boundaries of the deposit. I mean, it's a bit more diffuse out to the west, not as sharp as to the east, but we're seeing the boundary to the deposit. And so this year, the model, we found the boundaries, and hence we've gone now to 6.6 million ounces of total resource at Korbel, Maine. And we've increased the indicated portion slightly from 3 million to 3.1 million ounces. And so this is to be expected, you know. So when you have resources, this is why they have resource classifications. Inferred resources, very low confidence. Indicated resources, medium confidence. And measured resources, the highest confidence. And so we've lost, we've dropped in inferred resources. This is not uncommon in deposits. And it's when you start to find boundaries is when you have that reclassification and you start to tighten up the resource, which is what's happened. Basically, we've tightened up the resource at Korbel Main. Now, we've made up those ounces within the wider Korbel Valley at the Cathedral prospect, very close by, the same mineralized system at Korbel. At Cathedral, we've done we completed our first maiden drilling program there, and it's pretty if not unique, very rare that for a project you can do a first drilling program, and the maiden resource at Cathedral delivered 2 million ounces of inferred. And so the total resource at Korbel, at the Korbel mineralized system, has actually increased from 8.1 previously to now 8.3. Right. So you can see that's a positive for me. So let's move down to RPM, which has really become the jewel in the crown because it's such an extreme high grade deposit and people are very excited about it. So at RPM, similarly, before the previous resource was an inferred resource, very low confidence. And this year, the focus of our drilling was infill drilling, that RPM high grade zone. And what we've seen there is, again, a tightening of the resource. What it appears to be geologically is that it's an island out there. It's like a raft, right? It's an isolated island, that pod, that high-grade pod. Previously, our previous interpretation was a continuous zone that went moderately out to the north. And what we found is it's actually very steep dipping, and there's still some potential for an ore chute to go down at depth. But at depth, on some sections, we actually see a pinching out of the ore body. Mm-hmm. And then we also, our previous interpretation was that the ore body continued out to the west, but we've seen it pinch out in that direction as well along strike, faulted off. So we all of our drilling is, of course, the highest quality oriented HQ diamond core, and we get fantastic structural information, and we've built structural models and done a lot of structural analysis for the faulting and these type of things. And we see that is actually a faulted off block. Where does that RPM North is a faulted off block off of something we believe is much larger? Where is that? Well, we've intersected it. We've intersected the mother intrusive, I call it, where that block comes from. We've intersected it in the deeper holes at RPM North at depth. I've previously referred to that as the second mineralized intrusive, which extends down to RPM South. So RPM South and the deeper intrusive that we intersected at RPM North is the mother intrusive. It's a much larger ore body, so we know where it is. Our first drill holes into that, we only have 2 drill holes into that, 76 meters at 1.2 grams per ton, right? So we've already established that it's very well mineralized. And our upcoming drilling program this year will be focused on that mother intrusive to see if we can't intersect and find the extension or the other half of RPM North. So the implications for resource upside are huge. And so to me, as a private investor and as a geologist, I don't see the RPM story as over. I see it as just beginning. The RPM story has just started, and we intend most of our drilling this year, 90% of our efforts will be resource drilling to continue at RPM.
Chris sagt also, dass er sich nicht als Trader, sondern als Asset Holder sieht und glaubt jetzt genauso wie früher noch an den Erfolg des Projekts. Und deshalb investiert er weiter und bleibt langfristig dabei. Im Anschluss, da sind wir etwas tiefer in das Ressourcen-Update angegangen. Denn wenn wir die aktuelle Ressource mit der alten Ressource vergleichen, sehen wir, dass auf RPM North etwas weniger als 700.000 Unzen und auf Korbel Main ca. 1,5 Millionen Unzen fehlen. Zu Recht fragen sich Investoren, warum nun ca. 2 Millionen Unzen nicht mehr auf dem Papier stehen, und Grund dafür ist wie folgt. Wenn man ein Projekt bohrt, dann gibt es Erweiterungs- und Infillbohrungen. Erste, die dienen dazu, dass man die bestehende Ressource ausweitet, indem man auf neuen, vielversprechenden Orten auf dem Projekt bohrt. Infilbohrungen hingegen, die sind dafür da, dann diese Ressourcen in eine höhere Kategorie zu überführen. Also mehr Vertrauen in die Ressource im Boden zu bekommen. Dazu kommt, wie gesagt, zeitnah ein ausführliches Erklärvideo hier auf dem Kanal. Abonniert also gerne unseren YouTube-Kanal, um das nicht zu verpassen. Aber kurz erklärt, wird bei Infilbohrungen der Abstand zwischen den Löchern verringert. Hat man also ursprünglich 100 Meter zwischen den einzelnen Bohrlöchern, so reduziert man das beispielsweise auf 50 Meter. Hierbei hat sich dann aber vermutlich herausgestellt, dass die Ressource sich nicht, wie zuvor angenommen, in vollem Maße durchzieht. Das ist aber gar nicht unüblich im Mining, denn man kann nicht mit einem magischen Gerät einfach in den Boden schauen. Die Berechnungen, die werden anhand der Bohrdaten, Bodenproben und dann auch weiterer Tests von erfahrenen Geologen berechnet und dann auch in die niedrigste Kategorie mit dem Namen vermutete Kategorie überführt. Genau dafür sind schlussendlich diese Kategorien auch da. Doch um diese verlorenen Unzen wieder aufzufangen, da hat Nova Minerals auf Cathedral 2 Millionen Unzen gefunden. Und das finden andere Firmen ehrlich gesagt nicht einmal nach vielen Erweiterungsbohrungen insgesamt und zeigt hier noch einmal, wie mächtig und auch groß das Estelle-Projekt wirklich sein kann. Zudem macht Chris nochmals klar, dass sich in diesem Jahr vor allem auf das RPM-Deposit konzentriert werden soll. Insgesamt hat Nova dennoch die Ressource etwas erweitern können, nämlich um 300.000 Unzen.
Yeah, that's correct. And so we've taken inferred resources at RPM and we've converted them and proved them up to measured and indicated resources now. Right. And as I previously stated, measured resources and indicated resources, and especially the geometry of that high-grade bonanza pod, is such that a starter pit, when you come to a mining situation, a starter pit will go right on that. It's right on the surface, right? A lot of companies for this type of material, they have to go 200 or 300 meters underground. Of course, all of our deposits are right on the surface. That bodes very well for your project economics. And because it's in the starter pit and it's in one pod right on the surface, that will be converted eventually. You can assume 100% or very close to it to reserves, which is really what we'll get to when we get to our PFS in the future.
Chris hat also hier schon ein wenig über die Zukunft gesprochen und das war für mich dann auch ein gutes Stichwort, denn in naher Zukunft soll auch die Phase 2 Scoping Study folgen. Und hierzu wollte ich wissen, ob Chris uns schon mal jetzt einen kleinen Ausblick geben kann, was Investoren in diesem Update erwarten dürfen.
So let's go back to Scoping Study Phase 1, which we released last year. That was for Corbel only. That looked at Corbel only. So in Scoping Study Phase 2, the biggest addition there is now we will include RPM in the production schedule. So all the framework for the scoping study remains very similar to the scoping study Phase 1. There'll be some minor tweaks here and there, but the production schedule will now include the RPM material. And you can imagine, if you're in year 1, 2, you're mining RPM, that 340,000 ounces at 2.3 grams per ton. And within that measured portion, 180,000 ounces at 4.1 grams per ton. That comes, you can imagine what that'll do is that'll bring the payback period way down. That'll bring the payback period way down. And all of that will flow through to a higher MPV, IRR, and these type of key economic metrics. So that's what people can expect. You know, if all things remain the same, and now you're including high-grade RPM material in the first year or two, you know, what's the outcome? It's quite easy to assess that, I think, without going into complex calculations. It's 340,000 ounces at 2.3 added into the scoping study. It's an easy mind equation, right? So we're working diligently. That's what we're focused on right now, and we're trying to get that scoping study Phase 2 out before the end of the month, but it might bleed into early May. So you can expect that in the weeks to come for sure.
Right.
And it'll be. And as I said, I think, resources are one thing, drill intercepts are one thing, but really the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is the scoping study, which shows you what it all means in dollars and cents, right? What it all means.
Im Vergleich zur Vorjahresstudie soll also nicht nur Korbel, sondern nun auch RPM in die Studie integriert werden. Im letzten Jahr, da wurden bereits die Gesamtkosten, aber dann nur ein Teil der vorhandenen Unzen im Boden berechnet. Nun folgen also noch weitere 340.000 Unzen Gold aus der Measured and Indicated Kategorie mit einem durchschnittlichen Goldgehalt von 2,3 Gramm je Tonne, die eingearbeitet werden sollen. Was das bewirken könnte, das kann man sich schon selbst ausmalen, wie Chris auch sagt. Auch soll diese Studie bis voraussichtlich Anfang Mai erscheinen und darauf können sich Investoren also schon jetzt freuen. Nun habe ich Chris aber nochmal gebeten, sich an die Investoren zu richten und uns einmal zu sagen, was wir denn in Zukunft noch so erwarten dürfen.
Again, look for the scoping study. The scoping study is due in the coming weeks, and that'll be a major milestone for everything we've done to date, all the drilling we've done to date. Moving forward, we'll be doing starting our PFS level drilling this year, primarily focused on most of our efforts at RPM to realize more resource upside in line with what I've just described. Also exciting is very near RPM. We released a news release maybe a month ago on our Train prospect, Train and in the Trumpet area. So that's very close to RPM as well, maybe 5 kilometers to the north. And what we see there appears to be another massive intrusive related gold system. Up to 80 gram per ton rock chips, 20 to 30 gram per ton rock chips across a strike length of 1 kilometer and 500 meters in width there at Train. And then just to the north of that, about 1.5 kilometers, is the newly discovered Trumpet prospect, where we have similar rock chips there. And the exciting thing is it's an RPM style target. We see that intrusive hornfels contact, a smaller dike-like intrusive units, which is very indicative of an RPM style target. Certainly the surface sample grades indicate that. And so we'll be drilling our first drill holes into the Train area at Train and Trumpet. What this will do is establish, hopefully get enough drilling in to do a maiden inferred resource at the end of this year and establish a third resource deposit at Estelle. So Corbel, RPM, and Train by the end of this year. So that's very exciting. Also, fundamentals. We talk about fundamentals of the project. I've mentioned all of our deposits are on the surface. It doesn't require deep searching, expensive, complex exploration techniques. Our discovery cost per ounce is very low because all the deposits, it's mostly outcropping here. And so all the deposits are found by geologists, boots on the ground, who have new findings and new gold showings every day. They're out there literally. And so that's a big bonus, quite easy to find in that sense in the future. And we have a very exploration programs planned for this year to, we expect more discoveries to be reported from those. And remember, I outlined those deposits we have. There's 20 other known prospects across the claims at various stages of advancement. The next cab off the rank is Train. Then there's Stony out there. That's the polymetallic, high-grade gold, silver, and copper all in one system, which we intend to go back to. Also, in terms of fundamentals, we have great metallurgy here. Right? Our gold is very easily liberated. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good projects and gold projects by grade in the world and these type of things, but you can't get the gold out, the refractory or whatever. Our metallurgy is great. We've done extensive metallurgical test work and have a proven, very robust flow sheet, which is conventional off-the-shelf technology, where we easily liberate the gold. Not through flotation, we get over 95% recovery there, and then we leach it over 96% recovery there. And that's scoping level test work. Now we are honing in on some of the reagents and some of these things to bring that number up, but it's looking great so far. And there's very little variability from deposit to deposit. They all basically have the same metallurgy, the same easily liberated gold. And so the plant will be a one size fits all, right? A one size fits all. So those fundamentals are there. Also, I want to make a note of the West Susitna Access Road. This is the state-funded road project going from basically the Port Mackenzie, the deepwater port for Anchorage, and it extends out to the Estelle-Gold project. Mm-hmm. And we're only one of many beneficiaries along that whole economic corridor. and it's gaining major momentum here in Alaska, widespread support. They recently did a poll here in the local Matsu borough, and 60% of respondents were pro, definitely want the road. Only 7% of the respondents said they definitely don't want a road. And then there's those middle people who just want to know more. Fair enough. And so that's now going through the EIS process. And there's, people can go and find out more about that. And so that'll be very exciting for us. And it's the project schedule there is looking to come on to start construction and be built right on track with what Nova Minerals is doing as well. And there's so many other things, but in the interest of time, I urge your listeners to go to our website, and a shout out to my fellow director, Craig Bentley, who's been, looking after this. We've just improved our website, and all of this information is there. Go there. It's very interactive, and learn more about Nova Minerals and the Estelle-Goldprojekt. I urge people to do that.
Chris gibt also nochmal einen Ausblick über die kommenden Bohrungen, den Fokus, spricht aber auch über das staatliche Straßenbauprogramm, was derzeit parallel läuft und Nova Minerals durchaus entgegenkommen könnte. Insgesamt hat Nova also fundamentale Fortschritte gemacht und trotz des Verlusts von 2 Millionen Unzen in RPM und Kubbel eine Gesamterhöhung von 300.000 Unzen veröffentlichen können. Kleinere Firmen haben diese 300.000 Unzen gerade einmal insgesamt vorzuweisen und können dennoch erfolgreich sein. Bei Nova Minerals, da stehen knapp 10 Millionen Unzen auf dem Papier und das Management ist sich sicher, hier gibt es noch mehr zu finden. Was denkt ihr dazu? Chris konnte aus meiner Sicht ehrlich gesagt eine gute Erklärung zur derzeitigen Situation abgeben und wie es dazu gekommen ist. Und auch der Preis, der hat sich seit der starken Korrektur schon wieder etwas gefangen. Dennoch gilt natürlich, der Weg zurück zu einem Dollar, der ist noch sehr weit. Schreibt uns gerne einmal eure Meinung zum Interview und eure Fragen in die Videokommentare und dann werde ich diese sofort an Chris weiterleiten und euch dann auch zeitnah mit Antworten vom Management versorgen. Alle News zu Nova Minerals gibt es auf Deutsch auf axinocapital.de zu finden. Abonniert gerne den Kanal für mehr Wissen rund ums Mining. Wie gesagt, es kommen in nächster Zeit mehr und mehr Erklärvideos, die sind derzeit in Arbeit. Und dann werde ich mit Chris auch wieder nach der Veröffentlichung der Studie hier ein Interview führen. Bleibt also dran und wir sehen uns dann in den nächsten Videos wieder.